Watch this.
Nearly a month ago, the Nampa School Board banned 22 books from their library shelves forever. However, that permanent proscription isn't a fair description, according to the school board chairman, who is speaking about that decision for the first time. In response to those books being banned, some community members are banding together to talk about this old-time tradition that's getting some new energy lately. Recognize this sandstone? How about this irrigation transference? Maybe we can give you some direction, and you can guess where we're going today. So nearly a month ago, the Nampa School District Board of Trustees decided to remove 22 books from their library shelves at the urging of a few parents and with the agreement of 3 trustees. Books, they claimed, contained pornography. Books like The Kite Runner, The Bluest Eyes, Speak, and several others were removed as a review process was still underway for the entire list. Removed forever, or maybe not. In the May 9th meeting, the words permanently and forever were used to illustrate how adamant they were about removing these books. That finality and the sheer number of the books raised concerns for a lot of other parents and students and teachers. And we have been telling you since we first told you about this bulk ban, we have been waiting to get an explanation from the school board. Well, today, Nampa School Board President Jeff Kirkman sat down with Joe Paris and told him the removal of books, it's a complicated situation, one that is still playing out. Filled with problems, he says, which began with their former review process.
There was some kind of a process in place, but really nothing concrete that we could say, here, Mr. Parent, here's the process of how this works. And that was an issue for the trustees. We wanted to make sure that there was a really concrete process in place. And so that's why I brought it up at that work session. I was like, let's bring this to a board meeting. Let's get public input. Let's go through that open meeting of that public meeting and work through this process.
Nampa School Board Chair Jeff Kirkman says a confusing and inconsistent process for book reviews within the district helped lead to the decision to have 22 books removed from district libraries. He says his yes vote on the motion at a recent board meeting wasn't motivated by just wanting to remove books. He explains it's an intricate situation.
I can only speak to my decision, and so here was my thought process during that decision, or during that period of time after discussion. Trustee Valier made that motion to remove the books permanently. And when he added the word forever at the last second, it kind of caught me off guard. And so now I'm starting to think, when I vote, that's really going to make a difference, that forever piece. Because my thought, for me personally, was let's remove these books temporarily so that we can get a process in place. Let's just pause everything, because that's really what was going on. There was a lot of contention. Got to take them out, got to leave them in, let's take this out, take that out. Well, I just wanted to say, let's just pause. So that was what I intended to do with my vote, was remove those books, pause the process, get a really good, work with district staff, get a really good procedure in place that everybody knew, and that was what was going to happen, and then we run all these books through that process. When the word forever was added to that, that kind of changed everything at the last second. And so when the vote took place, as my thought process, well, if I vote yes, then I'm voting to remove these books forever. If I vote no, then we're not pausing the process. We're not pausing this so that we can put a good process in place. And so I voted yes because I knew, as a chair of the board, I can bring this issue back on, I can put this issue back on the agenda. And that was why I voted yes, to not ban the books forever. I voted yes to pause everything. Let's get a process in place, a procedure, good procedure, and then as a chair, I will put this back on the agenda, and boom, that's where we'll go from there. So that was my thought process behind that vote.
Well, you bring something up that I thought, I was reading in between the lines. I thought others would too. But when you say you're going to permanently ban something forever, that doesn't really mean that usually. Because if you're going to say you're permanently banning something forever, that's great. But you can always bring it back, as you mentioned, through the right process.
Forever's a long time.
Right.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I can't remember the exact wording of the motion. I don't think it was banned. I mean, I know people use that word because it was remove those books. to be honest with you, there's books on that list that shouldn't be on that list. They should not be removed from the libraries. But for me at that point, to make that decision, yes, to remove those, it wasn't about specific books. It was like, here's what we know the books are in question. Let's just pull those, get a procedure in place, and then run all those books through that process, and any other books that might come up.
There's community comments that say, it appears the Nampa School Board, they don't want people talking about tough subjects like sexual assault, like rape, sex in general, violence. These are very important subjects that young adults do need to talk about. How do you balance, I guess, the complaints of some parents that are totally offended by this at all in public schools, balancing that with parents that say, I want my students, my high schoolers, to learn about the consequences of sexual assault and the signs of someone who's been affected by this?
I don't know. And I think that's a question, that's an answer you're going to get from a lot of board members. And I think that's why it's really important to continue the conversation with parents. How do you want this to look? Do you want every time a content comes up in a classroom, do we have to stop everything, reach out to parents, get their input? Do we do an opt-in? Do we do an opt-out? I mean, all that. I mean, those conversations are not new, but if we did that, and I'm just thinking down the road, if we stopped everything so that we could get the parents, which again need to be involved, to ask those questions, we're never going to have the time to teach. Is it the school's responsibility to teach arithmetic, reading, writing, those core traditional school subjects? And I say yes. Is it the parents' responsibility to teach their kids about sex? I say yes. I take that responsibility with my own kids. Do they need to be exposed to all this other traumatic trauma, all this other stuff? Yes, they do, but is school the right place to do that? Is the classroom the right place to do it? Yeah, I don't know where that line is, but that's why we continuously have conversations with people in the community.
I'm curious what your reaction is to bookstores and community members coming together and say, okay, these books are removed from Nampa libraries. We're stocking them in our bookstore. We're stocking them in free libraries. If you want them, we'll give it to you. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that's fantastic. It's another opportunity for people to get the books that aren't available or may not be available in the public libraries. I know a lot of them are doing that to make a statement, which again is okay with me. I have no problem with that at all. But it's a great way for people to have access to the books they may not otherwise have access to in the libraries. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that at all.
All right, Joe, there's a lot to unpack there with what he said, but I want to start with this whole forever is forever. I mean, esto perpetua. We're supposed to believe he added this word, the trustee that made the motion, to add this word at the end of that, to remove permanently. Well, the question is, could you have just said no and then come back and put in another motion to remove the word permanently, or not include that word, I should say?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think sitting here today, absolutely. You could have said, at the moment, at the end of that meeting, you could have had, somebody come back and say, this is a bad motion, maybe we redo this motion. That's not what happened,
No.
That's not the situation. Now, could that have been the way? Could they have voted down that motion and redone it and reworded it a different way? Absolutely. You have to remember, though, this was during the time there was such a very emotional conversation, and the only testimony we heard that day in that long meeting that you can find on YouTube, we have it linked on our website, was a parent who... Just one parent who testified, and she was very emotional about removing content, removing pornography. So if you, I guess, kind of read the room and feel the situation it's in, you can understand maybe why that trustee said permanently removed forever. But as you and I were talking during the story, when you say you're going to do something forever, you can say that, but that doesn't mean, for example, if you want to be hyperbole here, 20 years from now, you could have a new board of trustees that looks at the situation and say, well, they banned these forever. We think that was ridiculous. We're going to get rid of that.
True.
Meaning that it wasn't forever.
Okay, so at the crux of this story, though, is that process.
Right.
The process where you had an issue of like, wait a minute, we need to look at this a little deeper, a little further, differently. Where is that process now?
So Kirkman tells me that this next week, coming up on Monday, the Nampa School Board is going to get together and they're going to start that process of creating a new process to figure out what to do with the challenged books, how to go through that, how to make sure it's consistent. We've learned from other school districts the way they do that. It'll be interesting to compare notes between what Nampa ends up deciding to do. The bottom line here, though, is that Kirkman and the board agree. They need a new process. They want to get that taken care of, hopefully before the school year. They tell me today, we want to get it done as soon as possible, but it needs to be done right. And as you pointed out, language matters, and
Yes.
every word matters here.
One more thing.
Yeah. Real quickly, we did file a public records request back on May 13th. We were asking for if any books had been challenged by parents. This school year, we wanted to get a whole list of all the complaints, all the challenges that have been sent into NAMPA. Again, we sent that several weeks ago. We have not received a response yet. Under Idaho law, they are supposed to respond to us in 3 business days. So we are going to keep asking because we're curious what's on this list. No one's in trouble. We're not going after anyone. We're just curious what books were challenged and why. So
besides
we'll find
more
out.
than just one parent that showed up to the meeting.
Correct.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe. All right. Well, in light of what happened at the Nampa School District and the attempts in others communities like that around Idaho, Story Forward, which is a offshoot from the Story Forward, is an offshoot of the Story Fort, which is an offshoot of the Tree Fort Music Festival. It's all layered in there. Well, they're hosting a banned book reading tomorrow night, an event called Banned Together, a banned book reading and dialogue. They're going to read excerpts from a few of the books that were banned by the Nampa School District, as well as a few others that have seen the same treatment lately. Granted, some of them will dive into some pretty adult topics, but some of them will be read by a couple of Nampa School District students from 4th grade to junior high. Christian Wynn will be hosting the event, and he's a local author and creative writing teacher, so stuff like this is very important to him.
It's just censorship in a way that I don't believe in, and a lot of people that I work with and around and teach, you know, we kind of put our art on stage and on the page to fight this kind of, you know, this relative oppression, if you will, of sorts.
Do you think a lot of people don't realize what is happening and how it is becoming more of a hot button issue?
I think people know. I mean, book banning is not new, but I mean, just kind of, you know, sort of the idea, I don't know if this fits exactly one-to-one, but like cancel culture, this kind of people wanting to sort of really, I don't know, just hide voices that they're afraid of a little bit, you know, and I don't know what was going through the parents' minds precisely, but, you know, people know about this, and, you know, free expression is something that I think that as an artist and a teacher, it's something you have to fight for at times.
Banned Together, a banned book reading and dialogue, will happen tomorrow night from 5 to 7 at Guru Donuts in downtown Boise. That's underneath the Idaho. Readings are going to begin around 5:30. It won't all be reading excerpts, though. There will be a discussion about the books and their banning and the reason they have been considering or getting so much scrutiny. Also, Rediscovered Books in Boise. They began collecting copies of those 22 books banned from Nampa School District shelves shortly after that ban became known. In just a week's time, they gathered more than 1,250 books. That's 3 pallets full. Well, they're going to be giving those out at Nampa Flying M Coffee House a week from today. They're going to give them out to any student, any staff member who would like one. Vandals have been putting stickers on the Welcome to Idaho signs for years. So the Idaho Transportation Department, well, they did something to try to stop it. You know what? It's working. All right. It's in Boise and once belonged to one of its original residents. It's a 1/4-acre lot that says a lot about the city's history. You have any guesses? Well, you can text them to us at the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Or you can send us any other questions you have about the show. We want you to join the 208 conversation, but don't forget to include your name and the hashtag the208 in any message you send our way. Word of warning, though, we do share some of them at the end of the show, so try to keep them clean. Busy Memorial Day weekend for a lot of Idahoans, hundreds and thousands of them. According to AAA, more than 224 of you hit the road over the holiday weekend. Not quite back to pre-pandemic levels, but still a lot more than we've seen in the last 2 years. And if you plan to road trip out of Idaho this summer, be sure to pay attention when you make your way back home to the Welcome to Idaho sign, or should I say signs. There are 2 crossing points in particular now have special Idaho-shaped signs. ITD, the Idaho Transportation Department, says the idea started back in 2019 after at least one of the Welcome to Idaho state line signs littered with stickers, as you can see here, to the point it was almost difficult to read. Welcome to, it looks like a P there, and maybe a couple of I's. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Sign was at the Idaho-Nevada border on Highway 93. You might recognize it. So they replaced that sign and put up another Idaho-shaped sign next to it, as you can see. And they say, yeah, it's kept the stickers off the Idaho sign. Well, a little bit. Okay, well, they're starting to pop up across the state. This summer, a second will be installed at the state line crossing on Highway 2. That's in North Idaho. ITD says they're going to put up only put up those Idaho-shaped signs in spots where there's enough room for people to pull over and, of course, place their stickers. By the way, ITD auctioned off that sticker-filled Highway 93 sign back in 2019 for nearly $12,000. A second sign was auctioned off in 2020 for $895, so quite the drop-off. So if you plan on hitting the road this summer again, bring some stickers with you. Put them on that Idaho-shaped sign, though, if there is one. Put the sticker in a place that doesn't cover up the writing, as you see. In other words, don't put it right in the middle.
You know, parks are pretty prevalent in the City of Trees, but perhaps none as old as this one, especially when you consider what it contains. You want more Idaho history? Give us your suggestions on what we should feature next. Send us a text anytime if you have an idea. The number, 208-321-5614. It's the same number you can send us any other comments or questions you have about the 208. Just make sure to include your name and the hashtag, the 208.
Well, you know this question. Everyone I see almost on my Facebook are asking the question, you know, I didn't mind with all that rain last weekend as long as it did something for the drought, right? If it did something, okay. Well, first of all, let me start with this. If you look at Stanley here, the mountains just look glorious. Look at all that snow up through there. We still have snow. As you look here at the top of Tamarack, I'm saying this still has to melt and come down into the reservoirs, even though we're starting to see some spots where it is breaking up. And this is the very latest from today of water storage. Arrow Rock 93% full. That's pretty good. Last week, when I was looking at it last Wednesday, it was 83%. And there's still more to come because of the rain and snow we had last weekend. There's still more to come down into Arrow Rock. If you look at Lucky Peak, it's 81% full. Last week it was 72%. So yes, it did do something. And these are on the rise, and there's still more snow up there. And we're starting to get into the position that as we look at some of these numbers, they're looking very adequate for the summer months. So we'll have to look here into the future to see what really takes place, because it's later in the season, so it's extending our season as we get later toward the end of summer. So right now, just to let you know, it's looking pretty good.
You know, as someone who spent a minute or two in that decade, let's be real. The 1970s were known for a lot of lame stuff. Disco, shag carpet, bell-bottom pants. How about leisure suits? Ridiculous sideburns, remember those? The Pinto, the Gremlin, the Pacer. Oh, and the Hustle. But probably something that left an even bigger impression, a more lasting impact. Urban renewal. What at the time was considered a plan to upgrade neighborhoods and buildings in a state of distress or decay by seizing and demolishing them in the name of modernization. Well, it didn't do so well in a lot of places. It was the reason we find a lot of remnants of Boise's years gone by in the middle of one of its oldest neighborhood parks. C.W. Moore Park is where it's at today.
From the entrance arch to the water wheel way in the back. It's no surprise some of Boise's oldest stuff would be stuffed into one of Boise's oldest parks. One of Boise's original residents, Christopher Wilkinson Moore, built his home on 8th and Grove Street in 1879. Back then, Grove was the street to live on. Well, 3 blocks away and 5 decades later, 2 city lots more deeded to the city finally became a park and playground. Another 50 years would pass before it became a park again, dedicated to C.W. Moore in 1983. Within its quarter-acre confines, you'll find a run-through of remnants of Boise history. That water wheel, which once moved water near the Morris Hill Cemetery, a clue to the canal system that moved Boise from desert to farmland. That arch was once the entrance to the Bush Building in 1904, on the corner of Capitol and Idaho Streets. It was demolished in 1974 because, well, urban renewal, and is now the site of City Hall. The date and name stones quarried out of local sandstone and salvaged from old Boise buildings like the Pioneer or the Central School, which was demolished in 1973 because urban renewal. Even the turret marking the southwest corner once stood atop the W.E. Pierce Building, across the street from the Idaho Hotel. Built in 1903, the Pierce Building was demolished in 1975. Yeah, you guessed it, urban renewal. So, C.W. Moore Park, parked in the city center where you can revisit what was once destroyed by renewal.
Okay, so it is a park filled with Boise history, but soon it may have to make room for something a little more modern. Back in March, Boise Parks and Rec met with the board of directors of the Capital City Development Corporation to talk about possibilities of what the park could become, including a play structure in the shape of 3 letters, B-O-I. You see them there, something the kids refer to as Instagrammable, right? This is a play structure. You can take your picture in front of it and, of course, put it out all over social media. That plan still needs approval from both City Council and the CCDC before it would be constructed. But adding that would just be another example, I guess, of renewal overtaking Boise's historical record, right? All right, lots of comments sent in today about the Nampa School District's decision to ban 22 books from their library shelves permanently, forever, and the chairman of that school board's decision to speak to us today about it. Thank you for pursuing the banned book issue. I just do not see how having a book on the shelf exposes a child to other perspectives. That only happens if the child checks it out. It's up to parents to convey what the family standards are for that child, but not mine. Another comment here sent from Gary. Your story regarding the Nampa School Board makes me cringe. Maybe these board members should look on the kids' phones to see what they're really looking at. It's a very good point. One point made by a lot of people. Why couldn't the Nampa School District simply seek parental approval or refusal for their kids to have access to these banned books? Asked Gary. Kind of put your names on a list. You can and cannot have said books or whatever. It's a lot of books to go through, thousands of books. If the chairman just wanted to stop the process of removing books so the issue could be visited later, as he said, he could have made a substitute motion to table the original motion to accomplish that, says Stephen in West Ada County. Nampa School District and politicians quick to put restrictions on the First Amendment, but not so much the Second Amendment. Wonder why the Second Amendment more important than the First. Were our founding fathers' number challenged, asks Richard in Boise. Oh my gosh, what a lot of empty words from the Nampa School Board chair. Showing strong leadership would be if he would not have voted yes, says Christine. Explicit sexual content does not belong in schools. As a teacher and a parent, I agree with censoring books, says Janie. And this one, I wonder what the parents who want to ban sexual assault books think about the ED radio TV commercials. Oh, good question.